And of course, that file isn't going to locate again. Hi, everybody. I don't know what it is about this thing and not playing anymore, but there it is. There it is. It's every week now. It seems like my theme music doesn't want to play. Is this a conspiracy against me? I don't know. Anyway, well, here we are. Another Ask Dave Fennoy Anything. Have some technical difficulties, but you didn't come here for the tech. You came here for the conversation and the information. So glad to have you aboard. Want to remind you that these live on my YouTube channel, Dave Fennoy Voiceover Training. And if you are interested in voiceover training, then just stop on by my website, davefennoy.com, click on the Study VO tab, and away you go. I would like to introduce my guest. By the way, I'm not seeing any. If you're there, say something. I've got nobody saying anything here yet, but I know we're live. But let me introduce to you Mr. Zeke Alton, and there he is. Hey Zeke,
wow,
how are you, man?
It looks big in that
frame. Yeah, and thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Yeah, you come from a little different place in the voiceover world. I came out of being a child actor and musician and then disc jockey. A lot of people came out of radio or theater, but you were a Navy test pilot. How did you go from little kid Zeke Alton to Navy test pilot to this? And tell me about the test pilot thing.
Okay, the Cliff's Notes version. Growing up as a kid, I actually, my father was in the military, so I grew up as a military brat. I was born in Europe, grew up in England, and then moved to the States as a teenager. When I went to high school here, well, growing up in England, you are inundated with theater. So I was a theater kid all the way through high school. Then I went to college and took a 25-year or so break from acting.
Where'd you go to college?
I went to a historically black university called Prairie View A&M, which is in Texas.
My mother and father met at Prairie View.
Get out of here!
I kid
awesome.
You not.
I did not know that
where
about
my mama and my daddy met and fell in love.
Ah. Yeah,
and they tell the story. I'm going to interrupt you for just a second. My father was quite a dresser, and they tell the story that they were passing each other, walking across the yard, and my father said, "Well, hello there," and my mother said, "Howdy do," and they passed each other, and then looked back. Both of them looked back at the other one, and then they ran into each other in the mess hall or where they served food, and the rest is history.
That is awesome.
Prairie View. Wow. There you go. As you were saying.
So I went to school at Prairie View. I was there on an ROTC scholarship, and then I joined the Navy as an officer after that. Was originally going to go be a Navy SEAL. That didn't work out. So I ended up going to flight school. And so I did a 20-year career as an officer in the Navy, initially as a pilot flying something called a P3, and then moving on to being a test pilot, flying all kinds of different things.
For those of us who don't know, what's a P3?
Okay, so a P3 is a really old airplane. They actually don't fly them anymore, so I'm kind of dating myself here. But it's a big airplane with 4 propellers, and its job was to hunt and kill submarines during the Cold War.
Yeah. So it could swim.
Actually, it's called a ditch when you crash landed on water, and we spent a lot of time training for that. I do have 2 friends who have ditched them in the water. Luckily for me, all of my takeoffs equal my landings, so I'm at 100%. That's a record you really don't want to break. But yeah, so they modified that airplane after a while to do surveillance and reconnaissance and shoot missiles and sort of be an all-around thing. So I flew that for a couple of tours. To date myself, I was overland Fallujah doing Overwatch in 2003 in Iraq. I flew in Afghanistan, done some deployments to Somalia, Kosovo. I was on top of Libya when that was pretty ugly. So a lot of experience flying around the world and doing that kind of stuff. And So I flew that airplane for a while, and then I applied for and was accepted to test pilot school, which is a unique school in the Navy out in Maryland, and they teach you how to flight test airplanes. It's an advanced engineering school, essentially. And so you go do a lot of really cool flying, lots of different things. I've flown helicopters, gliders. At one point, I was one of 2 blimp pilots in the U.S. military.
How many blimps does the U.S. military have?
They hadn't owned one since the 60s. They bought one so that we could do flight tests on it.
Okay.
Me and my buddy Corbin.
Wait a minute.
And,
Who'd they buy it from?
I think that one came from ABC.
It was an American manufacturer.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know why that just seemed odd. Oh, yes, we're buying it from Portugal.
Funny story, too. We actually flew it out of New Jersey from the hangar that the Hindenburg was kept in.
Oh, well, that's kind of spooky.
It was very spooky. It's a weird airfield. There's a lot of... Because all the old hangars are still there.
The ghosts of all those people who died in the Hindenburg.
Yeah. Luckily, our blimp was filled with air and not helium, so we were... Or hydrogen or whatever that was in that. It was non-explosive gas.
Oh, you know what? I know this is a voiceover show, but... Trey Mosley has already jumped in with aviation questions. I'm the only one supposed to be asking these aviation questions. Zeke, as an aviator, what's the best aircraft you've flown? I love the F-18s and the F-35s personally. Have you flown them personally, Trey?
Well, Trey, I haven't flown the F-35. I've flown the F-18. It's fun. It's like a jack of all trades, master of none. It's not as sporty and as cool as like the F-16. The F-16 is like the Corvette. But none of those are actually my favorite. My favorite are sort of the weird ones.
You're talking about planes, not women, right? Okay,
both,
I didn't want to get lost there.
Wait, is she listening? Yes, both, as a matter of fact. For a while as a test pilot, I was what's called a spin guy. So you take the airplanes up and stall them and spin them and then see how they come out of the spin. And there's a particular airplane that used to exist in the Navy called a T-2 that had sort of fuel pods on the wings, so it would spin really, really fast. So that was my favorite airplane. But it is hard to compare like an F-16 to like an H-1 or an H-6 helicopter. They're very different.
Okay, so you've been in the Navy, you're flying these planes, you're a test pilot, putting your life on the line, and you retire for some reason or another and go into acting.
Because I'm a test pilot, my brain is very ordered. There's a creative side to me that wasn't being fed in my time during the service. And so about 14 or 15 years into my career, I started getting back into theater, doing community theater and doing local theater in the DC area. And I realized how much I enjoyed that. And I think I can say this in public now. I was flying a test flight one day with 11 people on board, telemetry, and we're burning through tens of thousands of dollars a second to do these test points. And I wasn't paying attention to the flight test. I was running through the lyrics of the song that I was to perform that evening in a musical I was working on. It was a funny thing happened on the way to the forum, and I was pseudoless. And so I was running through songs in my head, and it dawned on me that I really ought to not do that.
I probably should be paying attention to the instruments in front of me. And why is that mountain so close?
Yeah, it was one of those moments where it's like you really need to reevaluate priorities, and I realized that I had been a rather senior test pilot at that point, and you spend your time at the desk writing schedules for the younger test pilots to fly. So I was like, you know what, I don't want to be on my deathbed and think to myself, what if I had tried? So I put in the 5-year plan, as engineers do, to transition from a career as a military test pilot to an actor.
Okay, so you're in DC. How'd you get to LA?
I knew that once I resolved my goals that I had to be in Los Angeles. So I spent about a year learning all about voiceover and about acting in general, and putting myself through a conservatory education and acting at night and on the weekends. And I realized that what I wanted to be when I grew up was a video game actor in AAA games and big budget animation. That was it. That's what I'm going to
You know
do.
what? That's very specific.
It was, yes. And when people ask me, how do you get into voiceover? My first question is always, well, what do you want to do? Because the genres are so wildly different, from e-learning to promo to video games, that if you don't have an idea of where you want to find yourself, you're sort of like swimming aimlessly. So I tell people, test all the waters and then find out what you really love, find out what you want to be, because that'll determine how you attack that career. And for me, wanting to be in big budget AAA video games with performance capture and big budget animation, that's in LA. And so while I was in DC,
let me ask you this: were you a gamer? Is this where you first discovered, hey, this thing called video games, and I could be one of those people? Was that what rang the bell for you?
Yeah, I don't know when it clicked. I still own my Atari 2600, the wood grain Atari.
Yeah.
I've been a gamer my whole life. And I grew up with a mother. My mother's English. She's several of the characters I perform, and her mantra was always, "Video games rot your brains." So it was really difficult for me to have that as a kid. But I've been a gamer my entire life, and it just clicked at some point when I was performing on stage, and we had got to the point where games were starting to become heavily plot driven. The first games like the first Last of Us and things like that, where it's like, okay, this is starting to be more cinematic.
It'd be very politic to mention the Walking Dead game right about there.
Yes, the Walking Dead game. They're tent poles, right? And you realize, wow, there is. It's not just bleep blop bloop anymore. It's these are real characters with real people behind them, and that's what makes them interesting. And so I had to dig around to figure out, was that a thing? And when I found out it was a career, I was just super excited, because I'm still a gamer to this day. And so, the idea of being able to take part in the things that I love on a day-to-day basis was just too good to let go. I had to go after that.
Okay, and your first steps in finding your place in the world of video games, who did you study with? Where did you study? Demos, all of that. What was that process for you like?
The get good portion, I ascribe to the Malcolm Gladwell theory of 10,000 hours. And so I put in years. That 5-year plan was to put in years to get really good at this, to be so accomplished that it wasn't a question when I walked in the room, because there's so many other things that come with trying to have a career in show business that I wanted to make sure I was really good at that before I got started. Funny thing, now looking back, when I got started, I was still terrible. But, you grow and you learn. Everybody has that first demo that you look back and go, "Ooh, buddy."
Well, I tell my students, look, there's a jumping off point. You study, you're not that good, and you get to a point where, okay, I'm ready to jump in the water. And you put that first demo together, and you listen to it, and you love it, and 6 months later, if you've been working, you listen to that demo again, and you go, oh my God, this is terrible. Because you will have grown so much. You will have gotten so much better. But hey, same story. I thought I was great, and I sucked before I spent some time.
My general approach to my training was learn what it is first. And so I spent a lot of time at conferences just learning what the genres are and how they work from the performer side. Then it was study with people who you think that you could be in the future. And those are actors who are really, really good, who are offering training and things like that. And then I wanted to get to a point where then I started studying with buyers, taking workshops with casting directors or working privately with producers, because that's going to tell me, they're going to be able to, one, I'm good enough to be in that room, and then they're going to tell me what I'm working on or tips to be bookable. I was careful to not jump that progression too fast, because I didn't want to be the person trying to learn from the buyer who wasn't ready to be at that point yet.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
It makes total sense. And Especially here in Los Angeles, there are a lot of classes with game and animation casting directors and directors, um, and they're a great way to showcase who you are. But of course, it's a really big mistake if you're not ready. Because the thing you want to have happen is for that casting director or that director to go, you know what, you're really good. I'm going to, send you some auditions and let's see if we can get you working. Doesn't happen a lot, but it does happen.
And a really important part, I think, of that getting good was understanding what I was naturally good at, what I naturally represented, and how other people saw me. A lot of actors, myself included, are like, I can do anything, I am an actor. That may be true, but this is also a business, and there are a lot of things that I do that other people are naturally, and they tend to book those over me. Right. So what is it that I am naturally that I'm going to book first? I had to spend a lot of time with myself. What is it about me and my experience and my history and my life that makes me unique? And then is that my brand? Is that what I'm selling? Because when I got to the point where I was looking at agencies in LA, I wanted to know what I had to offer. They wanted to know what I had to offer. If I couldn't tell them what I had to offer, why would I leave it up to them to decide?
It's interesting. I think sometimes the industry chooses what it wants from you. And I think for a lot of people, they don't always know what it is they really wanted to do, or perhaps a little more of a shotgun approach. When I came to town, I wanted to do TV promos and commercials and narration and cartoons, and have been fortunate enough to do all of that. Video games weren't even a thing when I started. But I noticed that through the years, at various times, the industry wanted one thing or another from me, not always at the same time. And I will not be surprised if you do very well or continue to do very well in mocap and video game, and then the industry says, you know what, we want you to do this.
And there is you're absolutely right. There is an approach that I take towards my career, and that is to break things into 3 categories. There are things that I'm actively pursuing that I really, really want. There are things that I would not like to do. And then everything else I will not say no to. And that has led to a lot of different things in my career. I never thought I would be a promo guy. I didn't think I had the voice for it. But I've been working in that for the last 3 years. And that is just being open to the idea, like you said, that the industry may go, come over here.
Yeah. Well, also, a lot of times we're trying to do what the guy before us did. And now it's 5 years later, 10 years later from when that guy got hot. And now we want to hear something different. Yeah. And that's just the nature of the beast. By the way, before we go any further, let me just say, I know you have some questions for Zeke. Don't be shy. Go on and ask. I'm going to pull what this wasn't really a question, or it ends with a question. Grace Newton. Zeke, my dad is an Air Force veteran as well, and later he developed flight simulators for the U.S. Navy. Do you think your military background has helped you in roles like Call of Duty?
Absolutely.
Gosh, why did I think you were going to say no?
Like I said, know what you're good at. When I walk in the door, I'm African American. I grew up in England, so I'm native Brit. I'm half and half. My mother's English, and I'm a military veteran. So those are the things that I really lean into. And I got hired in Call of Duty to do pilots. Surprise, surprise. But then, of course, anyone that wants to work in video games and cartoons, animation, understands that when they buy you, they're not buying the one voice, they're buying multiple. So you go in for what they see you as, and then it's what else can you do?
Yes.
And as Dave has done throughout his career, I parlayed that into a lot of different roles in different projects. But yeah, I got in the door as he's a real pilot guy. Because then we could talk with the writers in the session and go, is this actual pilot language? Well, yeah, it is, or I tweak it this way, and you become a collaborator. You become someone who can add to the project and to the process. And that's
a consultant.
I got a writing credit. But you want to be able to add value to anything that you take part in as a performer. And if you have life experience in it, as long as you understand that it is an entertainment property, so there's authenticity and there's entertainment, that you can fit in appropriately and add some value.
Yeah. Another quick comment here. Corinne Gilfrey. Hi, Zeke. My husband is African-American, half-Brit as well. Crazy. And that is crazy.
Hello, Karen.
Karen's great. We had her as a guest a few months ago, and she is just killing the game. So, now, how did you get involved with Sag-AFTRA? I mean, how long have you been doing this in L.A., first of all?
I retired in July of 2019. As soon as I started terminal leave, I hopped in my car and drove to LA. And then I started to work, and the pandemic happened. So that was
Well, and you really haven't been at this in terms of working that long, but you have made quite an impact in the short amount of time you've been here. And despite the fact that, we're just talking 3-4 years here.
Yeah.
You joined the union, clearly, and you have become somebody who is negotiating, somebody who is on the team to help the rest of us in interactive entertainment get a better deal. How did that come about?
So when I threw off the mantle of commander in the Navy, I was like, yay, I'm free. Let's prance around the fields and do artistic stuff. And then I got here and, was socked in the face with how much business is involved in show business. I didn't know, but,
2 words and more letters in business.
Yeah, exactly. And so, during the pandemic, I was looking for places to volunteer. And one of the places I figured I'd volunteer was at my union, so I could learn more about what it is that I do. As a military acquisition officer, I actually worked on the other side. So we had unions working for us, aircraft mechanics and air traffic controllers. And so I understood the needs of producers, I felt. And I also have a certain skill set from having to deal with contracts and negotiating and understanding programmatic and system structure. I've got decades of doing that, and my brain does a lot of that automatically. So when I was looking at the contracts and the things that I'm working under, there were things that I didn't agree with. There were processes that the union used that I didn't agree with. And I found myself complaining a lot because, actors never sit around and complain about stuff. But part of my nature and part of what's been drilled into me throughout my history is that complaining is fine. You're allowed, but you better have something you can do about it. You better be showing up with proposals or solutions. And so I broke back open my engineered spreadsheets, and I was like, well, what can I do to help? And that's when I started volunteering in the union and letting them know that, look, I have a certain level of experience here that most performers don't. And because I'm not used to having this amount of free time, being a test pilot was kind of a full-time job, and being an actor on top of it. And at the time, I was also a single dad. When all that cleared, because my son graduated high school and he's an adult now, I had a lot of free time. So I wanted to use that to sort of benefit my long-term prospects as a career. And so I started diving into the contracts and volunteering at the union on different committees, and then eventually got myself elected to the local board and now sit on a bunch of different committees, and I'm helping out with negotiations. So
let's
I got a skill set. I might as well use it.
Yeah.
Right?
Let's talk a little bit about negotiating, because so many of us never get involved with that. I'm a union advocate. I certainly understand the complaint. I love the fact that we have a union. It's a good thing, and yet it often is moving way too slow for the things we need. Damn it. I have I have done the job you're doing for the union in the promo world. And it's exhilarating and frustrating at the same time. Now, let me ask you that. And I always felt like if we were being paid what we should be paid in interactive entertainment, I could retire and buy an island. This industry makes more money than music and movies combined, and yet they really don't want the actors to become stars, and they really don't want to pay us what we're worth.
Agreed. However, there's a weird thing there in that they want to be able to use celebrities and household names.
Yes.
It's sort of like, I want to have the thing, but I don't want to pay anybody for it.
We don't want to create the stars. We want to get the stars that are already created.
Right, and that's what our union is for, to come in and go, you don't get to do that. There are rules, and if you want to use our performers, they're professional performers, and they should be paid as professionals. Now, I will freely admit that, and I say we as the union, because I'm one of those people that considers the union to be the performers. Like, we got a staff, but they're not performers. We are the organized labor that do the job, so I consider the union to be me. We have not done a good job at staying ahead of technology and getting there first. Our employers tend to get there first because they have armies of lawyers that research this stuff. We're too busy every day auditioning and working and trying to get better, and we're not lawyers. So that does put us at a
disadvantage. Yeah.
So. Yeah, but if I have something that I can bring to bear and I don't, aren't I at fault? Is the way I look at it. Because if I just complain and don't do nothing, it's not going to get better. It's not going to get better. So I might as well fight the good fight.
I'm going to pull up a question here, but without going too deep into what you're negotiating, because I know you can't do that. What would you like to see in our contract for interactive entertainment?
Oh boy. I keep a personal list. It's about 47 things long.
Okay. Well, let's go to the.
So it's a lot.
In your engineer test pilot brain, arrange that in order of most important to you, and give me the first 5 or so.
If I look, I won't talk about proposals for the future, but if I look at the current contract, what I think personally that it's missing is equity for performance capture. I don't think we take care of our performance capture and stunt performers the way that we should, contractually or process-wise. I think we should get paid more. I think we should have a share in the profits that the industry is making. I think we could. Our contract is missing some things that take care of safety for performers. And then I also think we need to address the future of technology. AI, procedural generating computers, synthetic doubles, all of those things are new. They are the vanguard. It's going to happen, those Pandora boxes.
There's no stopping it. Yeah.
And we need to move the large bureaucracy that is our union along with that. To make sure that we're still viable. We are still viable as performers.
Hold that thought. Corinne says, I don't have a question, but I want to be sure you talk about AI, synthetic voices, and all the contract stuff you do with Sag-AFTRA. You do so much for us. Thank you. Well, you hit what she was talking about there beforehand, and this has been a subject on this show before. And it's not going away. And the technology actually is getting better, faster than any of us might have imagined. I don't think we're all going to be replaced, but we certainly need to be in the fight to make sure that we are respected and compensated in this industry. What are some of, not what you're negotiating, but proposals you'd like to see?
Well, I'm happy to talk about the work that I've been doing in AI. That's separate from negotiating in general. And so there are tent poles that I tell everybody when I talk to them about. We use the term AI, but I think it's more appropriately to use synthetic voice or digital double, because
Yeah.
AI
Okay.
is the computing technology. That computing technology does a bunch of things. One of the things that it does is it creates audio and visual doubles of performers. And
Yeah.
that's the thing that I really care about. And whether you're in the union or you're non-union, if you're signing up to allow someone to make a digital double of your voice, your face, your movement, anything that you do, you have to know how to protect yourself so that you don't do it once and never get to work again. And so there's some major tent poles that I always advise people, particularly non-union people, because they don't have the legal protections of a union backing them. When you're looking at contracts or you're thinking about signing up with an AI company, what are you getting paid? Are you exclusive to them? You have to look and see if I give my AI voice to company A, does that mean I can't do AI for anybody, or I can't do synthetic voice for anybody else ever again? Are there term limits? How long do they own your stuff? Are you able to actively consent? Meaning, if I give someone a profile of my face that they can then use as a double, they can make that face, my face and my voice, say a whole bunch of stuff I never said. Am I okay?
And that you might not say.
That I might never
Yeah.
say some
They
racist
could
stuff,
they could move
bigoted stuff.
they could move you into the political realm, and now you're doing commercials for that politician that you have diametrically opposing views of.
Yeah. And are you passively consenting, meaning I have to tell you what you can't do with it, or are you actively consenting, meaning you can't use it other than these very specific things where I allow you to use it, and when you use it, I get to approve all the scripts that go into the machine that come out. That's a big one. And then who's tracking that? Like if I'm going to contract with an AI company, right? They have a business model because they're going to make sure they get paid. Well, how are they tracking all the things that come out of that model?
Well, they're going to track them for themselves, but are they tracking them for you?
Exactly. It should be in the contract that it's either at least tracked by them, more hopefully by an independent third party that reports back to me where my stuff is being used, so that I can make sure that I'm properly compensated for it. So there's all these sort of basic tenets that should go into anything when a performer is looking at signing up to be part of a synthetic model. Because it's the Wild West and sort of a new thing, unfortunately, we're seeing a lot of performers sign up for automatically renewing contracts that allow companies to use their voice for any and everything without their consent and prevent them from doing any other work. And that puts you in a
Prevent
position as
them
a
from
performer.
doing any other work.
Yeah, like you're exclusive to this model. So now that we own your voice in perpetuity in all media throughout the universe, you can't use the voice for anything else. Or we can freely put you on a Pepsi ad, not pay you because we paid you to get the model. We're going to put you on a Pepsi ad because we don't care that it creates a conflict and now you can't go work for Coke. That's a difficult position for a performer to be in. And unfortunately, performers are trying to get in early and sort of falling into those potholes. So I think it's really important that we educate ourselves about how to properly approach this whole new technology. And like I said, you have to approach it because it's here. You can't, ostrich and stick our head in the sand or else we'll just get left behind.
A triangle is very solid. And right now we've been talking about two different things. We've been talking about the actor and the union. What about the agent? How important is that agent in being involved and understanding the kind of contracts that we want for actors? Are you seeing your agent or agents that you know becoming involved in synthetic voices?
Involved insofar as they are seeing the breakdowns come through. They're not necessarily happy about it because anything that affects the ability for a performer to generate income affects an agent's income, right? If I do one session and then somebody owns my voice for the next year, my agent never gets paid. I'll be honest, I'm a little subjective. I really, really like my agents.
What agency are you with?
I'm with Atlas.
Okay, they're
And
great. They're great.
they are.
Tell
fierce
Heather I said
defenders.
hey.
Heather's a fierce defender of all of my work, and she's a fierce advocate for ensuring that I get paid correctly and that I get the right working conditions on set. She's an absolute godsend. She knows so much about this industry. Her and all the agents at Atlas, they really know the contracts. Now, personally, I'm not going to leave it up to my agent to be the only one that knows the contracts, but it's a great, wonderful backstop to know that if I have a question and I'm not having success getting an answer from the union, I can get it from my agent because we are real partners in this.
Okay, and now we're kind of backing up a little bit here, but Atlas is one of the better agents in the country. And how did you get your agent?
It's a long story.
Actually.
I try to figure out the Cliff Notes version. Again, it was part of the 5-year plan, right? So get good, which is easy to say, takes a lot of years. Once you're good, you can get to the position where you're ready to reach out or have a referral. Because I was training with buyers at the time, my referral came from buyers. And it is just Zeke's personal opinion that a referral to an agent is more effective if it's coming from someone who says, hey,
I can hire this guy.
I'd hire what, I'm paying what this dude's putting out, as opposed to another actor who says, this guy's good. So that was a key thing that I tried to ensure I had, because it told me that I was good enough. I felt I was good enough, but I had third-party objective, someone saying, yeah, I'd buy what you're doing, and I'm buying what you're doing. An agent, I'm buying what they're doing. That cracks open the door. The next step for me was learn everything I could about that agent. I spent at least 40 hours listening to demos. Listen to every demo on, because I had a number of agent interviews set up. I listened to every single demo multiple times through rounds, tracked them down to people that sounded like me, people that did the things that I did, to figure out, here's the list of things that I'm really good at.
Who do they have that's doing the same thing, and what are they missing? Yeah.
Right. Who they got that's just like me? Who do they not have that's just like me? Can I find myself a position where there are 6 things that I do amazingly well that they may have covered by 1 or 2 people, but they don't all have in one box? And
I'm guessing they didn't have many former Navy test pilots who, yeah.
Well, I mean, look, they had vets.
Yeah.
They had African American actors. They have British actors, right? They have performance capture actors. But do they have one person that does all 4 of those things at once? And on top of that, can cover a lot of dialect within Britain that is unusual. Because having grown up around the world as a military brat, I'm good with dialects. And then on top of that, I put academic training. I'm a Knight Thompson speech work trained dialectician. So unlike being able to walk in and give you RP and Cockney, which are 2 very wide extremes of British dialect, I'll give you South London, or I'll give you Estuary, or I'll give you Geordie, or I'll give you Mancunian or Scouse.
Yeah. 25 accents right in London.
Exactly.
Yeah, you haven't even gotten outside of London. They're right there.
Yeah, and I have the advantage of being able to call my cousins to check, because we'll just chat. And, I have cousins who live in London, and I'll call them. And, there's, again, what is it that you are that you can do better than anyone else? So what that was trying to do was arm me as a business person so that when my referrals cracked open the door to the agency, I could walk in and have a business meeting. This is what you do. This is what I do. What I do fits in here and will make you money today, right now.
I imagine that meeting was very different than most of the meetings they get with actors. I think most actors, if they get that meeting, they're, oh, hi, yeah, I'm so glad you called me in. And I always tell my students, look, find out who the agents are. Do they actually even have the kind of copy coming in for the things that you want to do? You took this to a whole other level. Atlas does happen to be, and I'm not disparaging my agent, CESD, and at one time I was with Atlas in New York, but and still I could probably go back if I wanted. Uh, but they're both great agencies. But uh, one of the things you said was you took control of your career, who you are. This is who I am. This is what I do. I see that you have this, this, and this. More often than not, that's not what we do as actors. And I can say there was a time in my career I made the mistake of going with a very good agent that didn't cover all the bases that I cover. And it was a few years of, I'm still doing okay, but I could have done better. And when I went over to CESD, suddenly I booked more animation and video games in the first year I was there than I had auditioned for at the agency before that. And once again, I'm not disparaging that agent. It wasn't their fault. It was mine for looking at, well, they do a lot of this thing that I do. I'm going with them for that.
I mean, yeah, with all the research that goes into it, I use the phrase, you got to find your tribe.
Yes.
Because I met with a couple of agencies when I got in town, and Atlas was one of the first interviews that I had. And Heather said, yeah, go meet the rest of them. You're coming back.
That's Heather.
And she was right, because they did everything I wanted to do. And in that business meeting, and it was a business meeting, it wasn't me coming asking, it was like, here's my business proposal. I walked out of there feeling like this is a person I really want to be in business with. This is a person that I really want to stand next to in the fight. I'm
loving your perspective on an approach to getting an agent. Love it.
It's a lot of hard work, and I when I start to tell people in person, I can see the eyes just like it's. And again, I have to qualify it by saying there is no recipe for this. You could have your buddy call and an agent pick you up, right? Because that's just how this business works. But I have a specific approach. It's a very ordered approach to do things. And so, and on top of that, I feel coming in here after having a 20-year career in the military, other people got a 20-year head start on me. I'm meeting people out here who are so fantastically talented that I'm like, you know what, I got to go back and work harder. So you may be better than me naturally, but I'm the guy that you're never going to outwork. And that goes with everything. And I tell actors that I talk to be the same way, because hard work only costs you time and effort. And it's something that you can control. And in this business where actors have so little agency, this is something where you can have agency, where you can go, I'm doing this and control it. And that, on the day-to-day, that makes for good mental health, I think.
All right, got a question here, or a comment. Let's read it, because I haven't read it yet. Terry Briscoe. Hey, Terry, how you doing? It's all about finding your people. New voice actors are so happy just to be in the room that we often don't ask the questions we need to ask in order to find the agent that we need, that we fit the best with. And so true, so true, so true. And this happens in the arts. I was a musician for a long time. I can't tell you how many times, oh yeah, well, we can't pay your band, but think of the exposure you'll be getting. There are so many of those stories with actors. I just want to get in this thing. Well, they don't pay any money. But we do have to look at that show business part. It's 2 words, but the longest word is business. Now, but let's get back to show for a minute. So when you're training, where were you? What did you do that you thought, oh, I'm ready now?
I had found, or at least decided, where I was going to focus my initial energy. And that was be the Black British veteran who does performance capture. I trained in video games to be able to take my experience and understand how it works in the room, doing efforts, doing a session not off a script but off a spreadsheet, working in the volume, all the technical intricacy of all of that.
I want you to back up for a little bit. Working not off of a script, but a spreadsheet. And the spreadsheet, for those who don't know, the script is on the spreadsheet. But instead of being in script form, it's a spreadsheet. And it may have, this is the line number, this is the character, this is the attitude, and here's the line. And it may tell you what was, who you're talking to. It may not. But it's a different animal than your line, or as I like to say, bullshit, my line, bullshit. Which I tell actors, no, don't. You got to pay attention to all the dialogue. So it's a little different animal. So keep going. The spreadsheet.
So here's an exercise that I would tell people to use, right? Get a script with a friend, read it like a scene, perform it like an actor, and record it. And then go get a script that's just a spreadsheet full of lines and record that. And then listen back to both of them. If you can give a captivating performance that keeps someone interested on both of those, then your technique is good with the spreadsheet, right? Because it's easier with the script. And I had to go back and look, and look, even to this day, I set some time in my day to go back and look at 6 month ago auditions and year ago auditions. And it's hard to listen to because some of them sucked, man. That was terrible.
You are so specific. I am so the opposite.
But I mean, there's no substitute for experience, right? And look, we all have imposter syndrome on some level, and I'm definitely afraid of being in the room and not knowing what I'm doing. And so, because in my former career, if you jumped in and didn't know what you're doing, well, you die that day and kill a bunch of people with you. This is great. It's liberating that my life is not in danger in what I do, and it does provide me a level of freedom and comfort. But at the same time, that sense of need for preparation is there, and the preparation in this case is exploring the artistic intent. So now when I see a spreadsheet, in my brain, I can really quickly understand what the line is before. Even though it's not there, I can make it up and go, okay, this person, I'm in this place, and this person said that to me, and now I give them this, and this is the intent.
It's interesting. I tell people, look, you're approaching a script. Your first line, what was said this is what you're saying. What are you responding to? And you certainly have to do that. Now, you just mentioned you like to be prepared. And in interactive entertainment, you are never going to see the entire script until you're working on the script. And you're not even going to see the entire script then. You're going to see your lines and maybe not even the lines that are going along with your lines. Sometimes the director will read along with you. Sometimes there's a line before to let you know. But you've not seen this script before. And, they said, well, okay, we're going to do line 557. Go. Give me 2 or 3 takes.
So my approach to be prepared there is to be Batman, right? Have the utility belt with as many tools on it as you can have, so that, I take pride in the fact that when I do an ABC, one of them is wildly inappropriate. And not like blue or X-rated, but like is totally out of tone, at least when we're starting, is wrong for the tone, or has totally missed what's actually happened in the scene, because I've trained my brain to be able to switch between, okay, here's a take, right, that I think is with the tone, and then I'm just gonna try something really weird and different. And that's where it gets fun in the session, right? As the session progresses, you will get to doing 3 ABCs that are all on tone, but still with variety. But without fail, when we start the session, the ABCs are all over the place.
Yeah, and then they kind of pull you down into it. Yeah.
Yeah, and that is a process that works for me, but my version of being prepared is to be able to look at a script and create 3 entirely different scenarios like that, like an improv exercise.
Some of my students right now are going, yeah, Dave told me that.
None of this stuff is really a secret, right?
It's not. And often, though, in voiceover, we're looking for a sound or a song that we think is going to make these words have meaning. I always say, look, be the character first. I don't care if you don't read it absolutely correctly if you're in character. We can always go back and get a pickup. But you can read it perfectly. If you're not in character, who cares? Who cares?
Yeah, absolutely.
Be the character first.
You've experienced this without a doubt. Different productions and different sets will give you different things. Some directors want everything on the letter, right?
Yeah.
Particularly in genre. But I've worked in performance capture games where we were given a script and it's like, here's kind of where we're going.
Yeah.
Just get, if you need to hit like this, you have to hit this word because that's where the player's going. But everything else, as long as your character would do it, go ahead and do it. And we've done entire days where two of us have been on the stage ad-libbing the entire game.
Lazy-ass writers.
Well, I mean, I thought the writing was good, but they didn't want to hold us to it.
Yeah.
And because the characters that we were using had some unique backgrounds that allowed for slang and colloquialism and things like that that were a little bit outside maybe the writer's purview, but because of my background and the other actor's background, we sort of understood that people in this area talk this way and do this kind of thing.
It's so freeing and also a challenge.
And it's intimidating to go, especially one-on-one with another actor and you're making it up and they're charging what they charge to run a volume per second. But again, if you're prepared, if you've done your improv training, if you've worked your process, if you've done your actor's process on the scripts ahead of time, there is a level of comfort that you can develop so you're not shaking in your boots there. There's still butterflies, right? If there wasn't, we wouldn't do this. That's why it's so much fun.
And I'm going to, there's a little difference between mocap and typical voiceover video games in that with mocap, you have to learn your lines. You have to memorize your lines.
Yes.
Whereas just a microphone and words on the page, this is the first time you're seeing everything except what you auditioned with.
Yep. And honestly, sometimes in the volume, you don't get the script until the night before or 2 days before. So you may have 38 pages that they give you with 48 hours notice. That sucks. But
so those plans for dinner and a movie, gone.
Yeah. But I mean, there are a lot of unique challenges to that environment that I love. I describe it as black box theater where the floor is lava, right? You're totally using your imagination. If you can get the tech out of the way and just fall into the character, it becomes really fun.
Let me ask you this. What kind of games did you play as a child?
Oh, boy. Back when I had my Commodore 64, we would play a lot of side-scrolling shooters.
Okay, no, but what kind of imaginary games did you play? I know, when I was a kid and with the gray hair, it's been a while. But cops and robbers, cowboys and Indians, which I know it's not politically correct anymore. But those kinds of games where you're outside, yet kids. There was a time we used to play outside, being these characters.
Back in the day,
God dang it. And the childlike joy of acting without thinking about your acting.
It's weird as an adult. It takes so much work to pull away all the adulting, and forget that there's a bunch of people around watching you,
looking
while
at you
in a Lycra unitard with dots on, with a helmet on, and a camera in front of your face, and a foam gun, and it takes a lot of preparation to be able to pull that away. And like you, I played cops and robbers, cowboys and Indians. Saturday morning kung fu movies would turn into kung fu fights in the yard.
Yeah.
Watching the Super Bowl, then we go outside and pretend to be Jerry Rice and Roger Craig, and you have to
49ers,
be able to find
baby.
That was the era. They were winning a lot then.
That's my team. That's still my team.
I was a Houston Oilers fan. So
when I was on the radio on KSOL, I got to interview in football season Keena Turner, who was one of their linebackers all the time, and go to dinner several times after they'd won big games. But Jerry Rice didn't like me.
Why not?
He was doing commercials for a TV seller. And they were selling Mitsubishi, and he couldn't say it. And I was the morning guy. I had to make fun of him. And we had a dinner one time. I'm sitting right across from him and his wife, and they're just staring me down a little bit. I'm trying to be nice. And his wife said, "We don't like you. You made fun you made fun of my husband." And I said, "Come on now. That's my job." And Jerry, how much did you make this year? They say, "Well,
Yeah, he's doing all right.
dude, you don't have to worry about me, okay?" But he can say Mitsubishi now. He speaks much better than he used to. I like to think I had something to do with that.
He pressured him into learning it. Okay, well, let's work phonetically.
I hate that guy. I'm going to learn to speak better. He'll never say that to me again.
Show that guy.
Oh boy.
That's
You know,
awesome.
you're kind of a singular guy. Had we ever met before this?
In passing, I think we've met at a conference, maybe at a Sovis or a VO Atlanta. But those are situations where you run into 6,000 people. So it's hard to remember.
I was aware of you. I couldn't remember. Have I talked to this guy? How well done? But it seemed like wow, he's doing some really great work. He's in the union and being a voice within the union. How long has he been in town? You have made a lot of impact very quickly. Well, your overnight sensation that's been working at it for
Takes 10 years to make an overnight set.
Exactly. But in the amount of time that you have been booking and working here, you've made a great impact, and I have a feeling that this is just going to continue. And we need more people like you, and with your mindset, and not just, oh, I'm an actor. Yes, it's all about the art. I don't care about anything else. But all about the business, and taking an approach that some might not think is that artistic, but it's just, I think you're using the right and left side of your brain very well.
I learned that here's the not so fun part about being a test pilot. You do a lot of work, a lot of writing, a lot of prep, a lot of training, a lot of boring stuff that no one sees for an hour of strapping on a rocket and flying around and do cool stuff. So I take that approach to, it is show business. I do a lot of business, I do a lot of prep, I do a lot of marketing, I do a lot of preparation so that I can be completely free when they say action. And for me, and I think for most of us that continue in this job, that time between action and cut is gold.
Yeah.
It is a dream come true, and I'm willing to work all those extra hours just to have that moment.
Yeah.
And I don't think I'm alone in that. I think some people haven't been able to articulate it maybe, but I
always say at the end of every gig, I'm a little bit sad that it's over.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Because now we're unemployed and we got
Well, fortunately, I usually know that I'm on a veil or booked for something the next day or down the line a little bit. But there's something about that little bit of time, it might be an hour, it might be a few minutes, it might be several hours, that you are doing this thing that you love, and it is just filling you up with joy. And then, hey, that's it. Great job. Bye. We're done?
And you're like,
I got to go home now? Okay. And I think you have that.
I don't want to miss it. I don't want to look back and not have enjoyed the sessions as much, because there's absolutely that sense of loss when you're done. You're like, we're done. And it may, I have no idea how long it'll be before I get back in here. So you treasure that moment.
Yeah. Got one more here before we wrap things up. 6:58. I always try to get out at 7. Theodore Mezzacapo. I think the feeling of it all is one of the most important things you've helped me learn, Dave. Didn't know you were going to say that, but thank you, Theo. It doesn't matter what accent, what tone, register, or the efforts you give. You give it to truly feel it. You're not thinking about anything other than being the character. And I think that was based on something we were talking about a little while ago. But Yep. I often
No
say,
one's
go ahead.
no one's hiring the voice. The voice is a tool. The dialect is a tool. It's like if they're going to hire an on-camera actor, they're not hiring the hat. The hat is just a tool that actor uses to be in that character.
Let the clothes do the acting.
Yeah. The clothes help,
Yeah.
but they're not hiring you for the cool jacket or the hat. They're hiring you because you're the character.
Just so you can embody that. Yeah.
So, yeah.
Excellent. Zeke, one of the best things about this is when I don't know somebody well and I bring them on, I feel like I get to know them better. As a matter of fact, that happens with people I do know well, and you find out things they didn't know. But it has been a real pleasure getting to know you through this. And, bravo on your success, on the person you are, how you have approached this business, and so many things that you have said that I think are just wise and should be standard practice for actors in general.
Well, thank you. I applaud you for doing this. You are a legend in this business, so it's kind of weird to be sitting here talking to you.
Well, it's funny because I get fans that, oh God, it's Dave. And look, I'm a regular person, okay? We all like notoriety. We all want to be recognized. I think it's a dangerous thing to believe too much of your press, both the good and the bad. I want to keep showing up and doing great work. I'm glad it's appreciated. I think sometimes when somebody puts you too high on a pedestal, they're stealing away some of your humanity.
I agree. I appreciate, and I know that everybody here appreciates that. It means a lot when someone who is really busy is giving of their time, because time is very precious, and you give your time every week to this. And
I love it.
That's
I love it.
Awesome. It's absolutely awesome. It's what makes our community as voice actors so close knit and fun to be in.
Absolutely.
So, bravo, sir. Keep it going.
Well, glad to have you in the club, Zeke Alton. I'll be looking forward to seeing what you're doing next. And thank you for joining me. And ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Zeke Alton, Black, English, American, child of the world, just great guy, great interview. You never know where these things are going to go, and boy, did it go to a wonderful place. All right. This and all the other Ask Dave Fennoy Anythings live on YouTube, on my YouTube channel, Dave Fennoy Voiceover Training. If you are interested in voiceover coaching with me, davefennoy.com. You can click on the Study VO tab. Do not book yourself for tomorrow through Monday. I'm going to be in Phoenix, Arizona. I'm going from hell to more hell in terms of heat for a convention to meet fans, sign autographs, and all that good stuff. But I will see you next week. And in the meantime and in between time, book something.